Yeah, I'm sorry, Vicky, but that's nonsense. You need to explain how people wanted to carve an entire gigantic canyon which used to be underwater in the shape of their kings, be pro monarchy, and not have a religion. Yeah, no, you need to explain that.
My immersion is broken. Greetings, everyone. I am Jarvis, and welcome back to Pint Cellar. I am joined with Hubrecht. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing very, very well. Thank you for asking, and I'm glad to be here again, as always. How about you, sir?
I am doing very good. And I am glad that we are joined here with the third member in this little triumvirate we have going on here. So how about we give a warm welcome to Runesong. How you doing, ma'am?
I'm doing well, thank you.
How you doing, lady?
Milady.
Nice to be back.
Glad to have you back.
So, The Last Church, I gotta say, it's really cool that we're looking back at the story like this, because why this is important for something like me and Hugh is that it was actually this short story that got the both of us to start podcasting with each other back when we did, on air with Jarvis. And
really?
Yeah, it was. And, we have our criticisms with the book, and we're going to definitely mention that, but I think it is cool that we are doing this thing once again for Pint Cellar, and it is crazy that this all happened 4 years ago. But what do you think, Hugh?
Yeah, like the Last Church is kind of like a very important story for us, so for our friendship, you could say. It kind of brought us together. But, like when thinking about the story in itself and its importance to Warhammer, it is a very strange story, mostly because it is kind of like one of the most important short stories for the franchise as a whole. It's kind of like always mentioned when people talk about, oh, what Warhammer story should I read, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of like, it's a good story and it's a shitty story at the same time.
It's not that shitty of a story.
It's not shitty, but it's kind of a meme of a story, because
everyone that
reads or hears or whatever way you interact with the story of The Last Church comes out of it kind of like, that was the most Reddit thing I ever read. Like,
is. You don't. There's justifications for giving the Emperor a fedora.
Yeah, but like,
and I wear a fedora, so
okay. In the sense that you can tell that Graham McNeil was thought that this was really insightful commentary when it really isn't.
Maybe that was never the intent when he was writing this. We can't assume what his thoughts were. I can't exactly recite the quote he said when he was making a short story. You can't make assumptions, but let me just say, if you absolutely want that deep of a conversation when it comes to stuff like religion, I don't think Warhammer is going to give it to you, especially a short story, because you know what? This is a hobby about plastic models. I don't think the debate's going to be that deep.
Yeah.
I think it can touch on deeper debates, but it really depends on whether or not the authors and the people running Games Workshop think that this is the time or the place for that.
But
I do have the quote by Graham McNeil here. I don't know if you want me to read it or something. I don't know.
Sure, you can.
Because I don't know the quote.
Yeah, quote to us. Okay. Maybe it helps with the audience to help us understand just what the hell we're talking about.
Okay, so basically the quote is about Graham McNeil's thought process. He pretty much he said that he didn't want to preach, but he wanted Uriah to be wrong and the Emperor to be right. So
yeah, I remember hearing that. That's what I was wondering.
Here's the quote. I came late to this anthology, and I was finishing a novel while the bulk of writers were thrashing away at their keyboards. So when it came time to start developing a story, I asked the editors to send me a one-line pitch for each of the other stories so I didn't waste time replicating a story that had already been written. When I got them, they were mostly bolters blazing, chainswords hacking stories, which is great, but I felt needed balancing by one that had a more thoughtful pace, with less fighting. One of the aspects of the heresy I liked the most was the dichotomy between a growing secular empire butting heads with humanity's urge to worship things in the sky. I saw the story as a challenge to myself, to the readers, and to BL. I would be able to write a story like this that was exciting and engaging. Would the readers buy into it, or would they be bored without the action? Would BL publish a story like this? Turns out it seems that all three were answered with a resounding yes. There's a lot of me in this story, though I'm certainly not preaching to anyone with it. It's more like I wanted people to talk about the story, to ask themselves questions and look at things in a different light. Some folk have said that Uriah is a straw man and that the arguments made on both sides of his and Revelation's debate are simplistic. Part of me agrees with that, as I'm not a theologian, and crucially, neither was Uriah. He was a drunken rake called to be a priest by a personal experience. No years of training on a seminary for him. And I wasn't trying to write a treatise on religion or belief, but rather a story that got people talking and entertained them. It's also the first time that Vicky turns up in a heresy story in a real form. He's appeared on a few times to deliver an odd line of dialogue, but this was the first time we'd seen him talk, interact, and appear for any length of time, even though most of it is in another guise. So I needed to be careful. In the end, to really steer the pot, I wanted to end the story in a way that, while Uriah might have been wrong, he was the one you liked better, and who came out with the apparent moral high ground. The Emperor was right that he came across as the arrogant, short-sighted tyrant, the very kind he rails against in the story. Now go back and read it again and see if you agree. Okay, I understand the intent, but there is like I don't know anyone that comes out of reading the story that says that is like, yeah, the Emperor was right on that, because anyone like most people who I know that read it goes like, yeah, like the Emperor's arguments are so bad that he pretty much there's no scenario like it ends up with the Emperor looking very bad, because not only he looks like a short-sighted tyrant, but he just looks like an idiot. You know what I mean?
Well,
like there's a reason why they call him, what people make fun of the Emperor in the story, as a Reddit atheist, because it's just Reddit atheist arguments, nothing of real substance. It's
and I felt
basically
I felt like people use like Reddit arguments when it came to like stuff against religion. It's like, thou shalt not kill. What if someone's trying to kill you? And it's like, well, you don't have the guts to actually do it, man.
Yeah,
I was like, thou shalt not steal. What if you're hungry? And it's like, stealing chips from a gas station is not going to keep you full for an hour.
Yeah, like it's a situation in which like even atheists themselves, like a lot of the time, come out of the story and are like, yeah, like if that was your anti-religion argument, like yeah, I'm sorry, like you need to get better material, because basically most of the Emperor's arguments are basically either historical points that are either very selective, very badly told, or very or are very biased. Ironically enough, like most of what the Emperor preaches is not something that historians would even agree with him, and I'm like, okay, fair enough, it's a fictional story, not a historical treatise, but yeah, basically it's the whole black legend of the Middle Ages and the Inquisition. Basically, that's all it is.
But Rudenson, I don't think you put your piece into this. So do you have something to say you want to add?
Well, I admire McNeil there for at least being a little more even-handed about it than a lot of other like self-declared non-religious authors probably would have been. So at least props to him for attempting to set aside his bias a little bit, I think both characters still ended up strawmen. And even though I agree with Uriah, I don't think he's the best vehicle through which to tell that side of the story, because we know that he wasn't someone who came from a terribly religious background, and really his position as a priest is a little performative. So it's hard to judge it when you've got someone who isn't a traditional priest character, who is like deeply ingrained in the faith the proper way, and isn't defending his points from the same position that like a normal priest or seminarian would. So it's very difficult to judge it when you've got such a flawed, I guess, avatar for that perspective. And the emperor himself is also a bit of a straw man. Everyone calling him a Reddit atheist there. It is a very straw man, kind of memey representation of what arguments an atheist would bring to the table. So it's a fascinating story. I love it as background for what the emperor was thinking at that time, but as a scholarly piece, it's not terribly good.
And I'll just admit, I'm not a scholarly person. I won't pretend to be, because you know what? I fix cars at the end of the day. Graham McNeil, I think, representing like what the emperor was saying to Uriah, which doesn't have that much meat or teeth to it, as some people might think, or it doesn't have that much teeth as people might think he has.
Yeah.
And then again, Uriah, like I said, like how we said, he's not a theologian. McNeil says he's not a theologian, and the emperor himself is.
Yeah, very clearly.
Yeah, but then again, I think there was the two were having a better back and forth in the fan film, which to the honest who don't know, there is a fan film adaptation of this, which I think was, had more teeth to it and has more meat to it.
Yeah.
So at one part, I'm disappointed with how the emperor was using his arguments, and I'll admit, when listening to the short story, I kind of clench my teeth, or it's like, just because I hear this stuff before, and it kind of frustrates me. But that's a personal thing.
Yeah. If I may, the thing is, like, for example, like I said, I don't want to say, attack or, talk down to Graham McNeil. Like he has his beliefs, he has his reasons for thinking what he thinks. But like Runesong said, both characters are strawmen, and the thing is that it's kind of difficult for me to buy into I kind of didn't want to preach to people that Graham McNeil says, when two things, I know two things. Like, first of all, I know he's an admirer of Richard Dawkins, first off. And the second is, like, his whole arguments against religion are pretty much not really arguments against religion. They're arguments against Christianity, because he doesn't point out, it's the old internet reliable of I hate religion, and I'm only going to point out Christian controversies. I'm not going to mention anything done by Muslims or Jews or Buddhists or Hindus, only Christians. And here's the thing. In the story, some people defend this by saying, well, it's not really Christians. No, shut up. It is a church.
It's a Christian influence church. It's called the Last Church. You don't call a Sikh temple a church.
Yeah, first of all, it's a church with frescoes and, stained glass windows. It is a church.
They say Big G God.
It's a Christian concept, first off.
When people say God, they're referencing Big G God. So that's what the word means.
And another thing, when the emperor is pretty much doing the whole, but what about the Crusades? And what about the Inquisition? It's saying, members of your church. So it's talking about Christianity. It's talking about Christianity. And that's something that annoys me because, first of all, as someone who studies history, these subjects are not as shocking and controversial now that I know more about them because I've studied them. But like the emperor uses them as like they're these great controversies which are mostly artificial. Like they're artificial controversies. They did not arise naturally. They are pretty much curated by either misunderstanding or agenda, right?
Because that's the thing I've always noticed. It's like people will name drop Crusade for the absolute worst thing that's happened in Christianity, but when you ask them like what Crusade and what actually happened, they'd be like, I don't know, Crusade. And it's like, well, what happened in the Crusade? What were they doing?
Which
and it's
battle?
Like,
which
battle?
And they wouldn't even know there was a battle. They wouldn't even know they were going to Jerusalem. They wouldn't even know like what happened in Europe during that time. All they know is Crusade, and it's like they don't really know much more about it.
Yeah,
plus they won't tell you what instigated them.
Oh yeah,
that's not even the funniest idea. Not even instigate. It's like they don't even know what happened. It's like, so what exactly were they doing?
Yeah, like basically, it's funny because then you will have like in the real world politicians that are like, oh, but let's remember that once the Crusades happened and blah 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 and bad things done in the name of Christ, and I'm like, that's funniest thing about that is the reason
thing you can say. That's the absolute worst thing to happen in Christianity, guys.
The funniest part about all of this is that when you actually we all know this, like the Crusades happened because of centuries of Islamic aggression, but people will conveniently always leave out that part, right? And like it's funny that.
And also, it was a bit of a political motivation to wanting to take back Jerusalem. And it's like, you know what? That's something people still do today. Bring in politics to the motivation is really politics at the end of the day.
It was also a call for aid from the Byzantines in the East, or the Eastern Romans. Fuck it, the Byzantines were not our delusional cosplayers.
Whatever,
Holy
bro.
Roman
We're not fine-combing history again because we did this last time.
Yeah, but
all right. So,
sorry, Runesong?
If I were, like one thing I'll touch on before breaking down the Emperor's arguments is, if I were to steelman the Emperor was right arguments, he is sort of accidentally right in stuff that would happen later, and it's really just an unfortunate circumstance of the setting. I think one problem we have when debating people on this story or the Imperium in general is so many people are unwilling to entertain the hypothetical of what would you do if you were put in this setting. Like, your mind's wiped, you don't have your real life, you're like brand new person in 40K. How would you react? And I don't think any of us would really know, given whatever planet we're on, the family history, that planet's history. And it's easy for us to sit here in real life where things are definitely not like they are in 40K and say, oh, I would have thought this. Oh, I would have reacted this way.
Yeah. And
I'll admit, I'm just not a good person when it comes to debates. Like, I'll just admit that. And I'm pretty sure if I was in like in ancient Terra, I think I would accept the Emperor's unification wars, because blank slate, I'm on my own. Like, I'm going to obviously follow the guy who has the bigger muscles.
Right. And I don't say that to criticize either of you two, but it did make me think that it's been difficult over the years as I've learned more about the lore. I've actually changed my mind a couple of times on how much I would have pushed back against someone like the Emperor, because I don't know how me in the 40K universe would actually act.
Yeah.
It's too easy for people to be like, oh, I would have hidden Anne Frank in my attic. I don't know that
would
you
really?
Yeah, like here's the thing about that, because I do agree with you, Rooney. It's funny because that line of argument, that whole point, can be applied to real world history, and that's something I actually criticize a lot, because it's very easy to be in a situation 500, 2,000 years later and say this guy was an idiot for not doing this or not acting like this, or why they didn't just do this,
Captain Hindsight.
when you are basically, when you're safe and sound in the comfort of your house, and the other guy had to act with what he knew in the circumstances under the pressure that they knew, and then whack our finger at them saying like these people are bad or these people are good, so it's like a very arrogant way of doing things. And it happens a lot with 40K when people are like, oh, the Imperium is evil, you're not supposed to like it, like kind of like I'm pretty sure, like, if you were on the 40, like, considering, like, some attitudes that I end up seeing in some people, you would be burning people left and right the first opportunity you came across because of how judgmental some people act,
Because matter.
Hey, I say this as someone who actually prefers the Necrons. Big surprise. Yeah. And so I'm not, like, an uber Imperium simp, but I still think that given the circumstances in 40K, if I'm pro-human, unfortunately that means being on the Imperium side. If I was a Xenos, I'd be supporting whatever Xenos faction. I don't know that I would sympathize with the humans at all. So yeah, I think people just need to sort of remove their real world bias just a little bit and at least consider that this is a different world with different rules, and like your world circumstances and the time period you're in, the politics, the history, whatever, the people around you can heavily influence how you think and feel. And like that out of the way, like going back into sort of armchair judgment mode, the Emperor, I think, is definitely wrong about things like, oh, well, all the wars were caused by religion. Okay, well, the very first murder in human history was caused by just straight up jealousy.
Yeah.
And what about resource wars? What about land wars? Like, religion is hardly the only culprit.
Like, and I just want to say, yes, religion can be an absolute cause for like extremism, irrationality, and why people are being ridiculous for why they would persecute other people. But then again, I'm on the fence that it's not that people are ridiculous because religion is ridiculous. It's because people are ridiculous that can make religion ridiculous.
You can turn anything into a good excuse for war.
Exactly.
Yeah, religion just happens to be a popular one.
I can't accept the fact that there's like modern day politicians, like especially the guy in Israel, he would name drop a Bible passage, and it's like, keep your serpent tongue behind your teeth. Because it's like, how there's figures in Dante's Inferno in which politicians are especially in hell because they are liars.
Yeah. Here's the thing about the Emperor's argument. The actual answer to that is no. The historical data shows religion does not cause most war. In fact, it is one of the smallest fractions as the cause of wars.
And you think the Emperor would know that?
Yeah, like here's like
maybe he's lying. Maybe he was lying to someone who's ignorant like Uriah. Maybe he's just a liar.
There's two ways to look at it. Either the Emperor doesn't know as much as he claims to know,
or he's a psychopath.
Or he's just straight up lying just to align things with his agenda.
Or maybe Graham McNeil just didn't know himself because he.
I was going to say, like, it's hard to tell when you're dealing with a slate of authors who, at best, are agnostic and kind of tolerate religious audience members. So I don't know that we'd ever really get a version of the Emperor that actually thought about that sort of thing.
Yeah, in Charles Phillips and Alan Axelrod's 3-volume encyclopedia on war catalogs 1,763 conflicts throughout human history. Only 7% of them were classified as primarily religious in nature. So only 7% of them which, it's still just a 3-volume encyclopedia, but, it
but
does give you a
7%
pretty
is too
good
much.
idea.
7% is too much, though.
Most of the conflicts in the encyclopedia, most of the percentage is wars over resources and territory. And here's the thing: wars normally have more than one reason for happening. It's very seldom just one reason and only that. Normally, it's a spew of several different reasons for it happening.
It's never as simple as atheists think, where they'd have you believing that it's my religion's better than yours. I'm going to fight you now.
We're obviously referencing like the 2010 topics I was going around at that time, because this is what we're referencing to, guys. Just by the way, we're not saying this happens now anymore. I just think when it was the most on fire during like the Four Horsemen time of Hitchens, Dawkins. I can't name the other two, but because that was what they were saying is like, oh, religion caused wars because they did this, like just name dropping stuff like crusades and all, ignoring the fact that why do wars happen? And at that time, South Park even did an episode where it was like in an atheistic future, and the atheists are declaring war on each other over names, like what they should call themselves.
I mean, you just need to some of the most brutal regimes in human history and in recent human history have been not only atheist regimes, but they have even waged war on other atheist regimes, like Nazi Germany, the Soviet Union,
and when they tried to LARP,
the Khmer Rouge,
when they tried
China.
to even LARP, like when they try to LARP like things like Christianity and stuff, here's the thing: politicians lie. Do you think?
Oh, yeah.
It's like, I'm just saying, guys, they lie, or they don't even really care.
Yeah, the politician is just wants to straight public opinion. Like that's the only thing they really want to do.
But even then, it's like that's a example in our world. But then again, in the world of the last church, the emperor was actually using things that happened in their time, like when he was telling Uriah about like how there were gene vats, pardon me, where they were making or growing artificial animals to feed, and the local cult members didn't like that, thinking it was like disgusting and abominable to their religion, which that's a whole topic on itself. But that is an example of something that happened recently in the world of last church that the emperor was telling Uriah about. And also the one cardinal, which I think is referencing the Philippines, when he was talking about like being more on the eugenics side about, keeping the people pure. Then again, it's like, this is stuff that happened in the last church that happened recently that the emperor is telling Uriah, well, Uriah, it's not something done in the ancient past. It's something that can still happen now. And here's some examples.
Right. It's a little hard to judge when the recent history that they kind of cherry pick from is also biased, and we also are missing context for.
Yeah.
But I don't know that they want to flesh out the world that much.
Mm-hmm. Then, even on the whole, if I do want to go on a side tangent about like the world of quote unquote last church, because I do like some like lore drops they did here and there. I really did like how to describe how much things have changed on Earth. The emperor referenced not the Marianas Trench, but the Marianas Canyon. So that kind of tell you how bad things are.
Yeah, that's fascinating. The funniest part about that bit is the emperor is pretty much going on a tangent that you don't need to have inspiration from the divine to create beautiful art. Anyone who has been to a modern art museum can tell you that's bullshit.
As an artist, that passage was annoying.
Yeah.
It's like, oh,
yeah,
art's
if you ever been
art.
to a modern art museum, you know that's bullshit. And you know what's also bullshit? That, there were these godless people thousands of years ago that carved the Mariana Canyon with images of their kings, and they were a godless people. That's nonsense. One of the things that I'm not going to even believe the emperor is the idea that there was a godless people that memorialize their kings, that had a monarchy and that were a godless people. Monarchies tend to be divinely ordained. So yeah, no, that's nonsense. Sorry, but that's nonsense.
Yeah, I would need a lot more context on how a kingdom would form with no religion whatsoever and be pro-monarchy.
Yeah.
But it's so out there. It's like, if they're not willing to explore it, and I don't think they should anyway, because like that's going way off into the weeds for Warhammer.
Yeah.
It's hard to judge when you've got so little context and it feels really out there.
And in partly it's kind of intentional in a way. Like, I don't say all this just to say like, oh, the story sucks. No, but because part of the point here is that, so much time has happened since our own time, and so many things have been lost due to, the passage of time and the whole crisis and the old night and all that. So of course, information is fragmentary at best, like it's probably even more fragmentary than in our own time. So it's kind of, we're not supposed to get additional context, but like just going off of that information the Emperor gives us. Yeah, I'm sorry, Vicky, but that's nonsense. You need to explain how people wanted to carve an entire, gigantic canyon which used to be underwater in the shape of their kings, be pro-monarchy and not have a religion. Yeah, no, you need to explain that.
My immersion is broken.
And it does feel hypocritical too that he can present examples of art, like beautiful art, coming from atheists or agnostics. And they do, like, there are plenty of non-religious artists in the world that make gorgeous pieces of art.
This especially this is especially true for writers, because look at Lovecraft with stuff that he wrote. I'm just saying as an example, because yes, the Emperor is right that art is just art, but here's the thing: there's soul that goes into making something, because AI art is crap.
You can't, because you can't then turn around and claim that the opposite is true, that no art is divinely inspired.
Yeah, here's the thing. When he's talking about the fresco that's in the church from on Painter in Universe called Isandula, which seems to be kind of like being a parallel of Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel. Yes, Isandula got commissioned and Isandula wanted to eat, but like if we're going by Michelangelo alone, Michelangelo got commissioned, he got paid, but Michelangelo was very Catholic, so if you had asked him, Michelangelo would have said, something along the lines of, I tried to capture the glory of the Lord's creation.
Exactly. I remember a guest like telling me this. It's like, yes, if say a Christian isn't hired by his church to make like good art for the inside building of said church, then yeah, he's going to like put 100% into it and go full throttle to make sure it's perfect.
Yeah.
And even if this artist wasn't religious herself, then how does that debunk religion? Like, as far as I'm aware, the people who came in to do like touch-ups and paint in my old parish, they may not have been religious for all I know. Does that suddenly disprove my religion because we had someone non-religious come paint the inside of the church a little bit?
Or maybe construction workers like building a church?
Right.
Yeah, like it's funny because the Emperor's kind of like, well, art is just art. Well, hiring a service is just hiring a service. It doesn't prove anything, so the argument is not only bad, it's childish even, you know what I mean? And the Emperor comes off across as such an asshole in this. Like Uriah cannot even enjoy being divinely.
That's one of his characteristics. He's an I said we weren't swearing, but too late now. That's the thing about the Emperor. That's one of the characteristics about him that I think people kind of need to accept. He's an asshole because, yeah, he's immortal. He's lived all these years, and maybe there's a little sprinkle of influence of sociopathy and psychopathy in him. But I guess just what happens when you're immortal and just become like not caring about death.
Very disconnected, basically. Very disconnected from base humanity.
He is a god walking on Earth, but him claiming to be, oh, I'm just a man. It's like, well, you fail at that.
Yeah, and like Uriah cannot even say how pretty the fresco is with the emperor going, actually, you know.
Right.
And Uriah even told him this. It's like, if you just came here to rage bait me, you can just might as well just leave. And he's like, sorry. And it's like, you called Uriah just lead-hearted, and it's like, maybe there's a lot of lead in your heart, dude.
Yeah. I want to talk a moment.
Centuries worth.
Yeah, I want to talk a moment about Uriah. I don't know if this was intentional by Graham McNeil, or if he just picked a random biblical name just to add flavor to it. But Uriah is a name from two characters in the Bible. The name means God is my light, basically. And it's from two characters in the Bible. One's a minor prophet, which preached to the people of Israel, or, well, to the fragmented kingdom of Israel, you know, when it's split in half, about the same thing that Jeremiah preached, about the upcoming inevitable judgment of God for their sins, right? And he got killed for it. He got martyred for it. And the other Uriah actually is the more interesting one, in my opinion. Uriah the Hittite was one of King David's top guys, and he had a wife. Guess what the name of the wife was?
What?
Bathsheba.
Does this mean anything? I don't know.
You don't remember that story? Basically, King David is walking through his palace, and he sees Bathsheba bathing in her roof, and of course he is immediately taken with her and wants her as a concubine, but she is a married woman, and so Uriah, which is David's top guy, and he's his friend, David, so he can take this woman for himself. Basically sends Uriah to the front lines to mission after mission with the intention he gets killed, basically. So yeah, that's David's great sin. When he, realizes what he's done, that's why he starts composing the Psalms that are, well, not all the Psalms, but the Psalms that are very penitent in nature, that, call him out. He calls himself out in that, I'm a wretch, I'm a sinner, I am undeserving of God's love, and that there are a lot of psalms that are like that, and yeah, that's pretty much the downfall, the inciting event that causes the downfall of David's dynasty, because Bathsheba would be Solomon's mother, and Solomon would be the one that splits the kingdom in half, Solomon's heirs. So yeah. There's a motive with great men being brought low by their lust, ironically, the Iliad, Paris and the Iliad, Lancelot in the Arthurian legend, so on. I don't know if there's any symbolism in using Uriah as the name for the priest in the story, but I don't know. What do you guys think?
And I just want to say, because Bob, I'm going to assume you guys already listened to the short story before listening to this podcast, the audience, but it's like, well, too late. I'm not doing a TLDR right now. But I just want to say, because this is an important part, because this is a part that people will say that, you see, Emperor's right, because he's pointing out Uriah's Bible by saying, well, all your people are bloody and vengeful, and it's a horror story. Well,
yeah, that's the point.
Well, the thing is that because the point of these biblical men who we're supposed to learn from their teachings is that they're flawed, and they do horrible things when they start to detach themselves from God, or thinking they can do no wrong without God. Or with with God by their side. It's like, I can't do no wrong, I'm a holy man. And they get brought low when God finally, have them answer to their sins, and then they come begging for forgiveness. Because the whole point is that the only one in the entire Bible who is perfect is Christ.
Yeah. it's funny because the emperor by the end of the story is like, as long as we must free ourselves from a religion that teaches us not to question. And it's funny
and
because
follow
like,
me.
yeah, like it's funny because the emperor would say something like, the religion teaches us not to question, but then we'll take biblical stories and just look at them at the most surface level and say, well, they're in their holy book, so they are everything in there is supposed to be taken as an example to follow, right? Instead of like, the whole point of a lot of these biblical figures is to not do what they're doing. That's the point of the story, that they are, it's a tragic story about the folly and darkness of man. Like, people will pick like, oh, well, in the book of Judges, there's this whole passage about women, being assaulted and then brutally killed. And it's like, whoa, the Christians, do you see what's in your holy book? Yeah, the point is, that's horrible. That's the point of the story, genius.
Or
it's the same mindset as people who think that you having a villain that does a horrible thing means that the author supports what the villain did. And it's no, your heroes need opposition. The author doesn't support this.
Or not even like it's a villain doing it. It's like biblical men who think they have the right to do things because they follow God. Then when God punishes them, that's when they realize what they've done. Like the example of King David.
Well, it's in the Bible, so I suppose I can club my sister to death the moment she makes me jealous.
Or, when Moses was told to write down the commandments, one of the commandments being thou shalt not kill. Oh, but decades earlier, Moses killed the one guy. That means it's okay to kill then.
Or, fair, it's actually thou shalt not murder. But you know what I mean.
But here's the thing. Yeah, Moses murdered the guy, but therefore it's okay to murder. And it's like,
wasn't that an accident, by the way?
You're referencing the DreamWorks film, man.
Yeah, I know, but it's very unclear. In the Bible, it's actually very unclear. Like, it's kind of unclear as long as I remember how intentional that
manslaughter is still murder, though.
Yeah, I know, but it's not the same type as stabbing someone while he sleeps. I'm just saying.
Or Cain murdering his brother, or we can go like round and round about like examples in the Bible, but the reason why we're fine combing stuff like this is because, the emperor says this. Oh, look at your holy book. People outside, the readers reading this will either be like, that's a straw man, or be like, well, you see, he's right for pointing him out. And it's like,
he's doing the meme, ironically, like your holy book has this bad thing. Therefore, like, how can there be a God if bad thing?
Like, that's the whole plot of the entire book. Like, that's the whole point. It's kind of like
it sounds like we're here to repent and try to earn our way back into heaven. It's almost like that's the point, and this is not supposed to be paradise.
Yeah.
Or even then, it's like we are sinners, and the whole point, because that's the whole point of Christianity, is that you must transform yourself through Jesus and be part of his church on earth. Thy will be done on heaven as on earth, to transform yourself into be something different and going beyond your animal nature. Because
it's almost like the religion that teaches that God sacrificed himself to pay for the sins of mankind implies that there are sins of mankind that need to be cleansed and at some capacity. Weird.
Another thing I thought of is, wouldn't it have been more tragic and even grimdark to a degree if the emperor was actually, like, he doesn't have to be religious himself. He could still be agnostic or straight up atheist for all I care. But what if he at least sympathized? And, it's not that he wants to be purging religion. He knows how the warp is going to twist just everything, including faith. And this was not something he was looking forward to. I think it would have been much more compelling in that case, because he could be sort of like the bad guy. Like, how sometimes there are heroes, or I guess anti-heroes, who they know that no one else is going to make the choice to do the dirty work to save the day, and he takes it upon himself, like, I hate to do this to my people, but this is necessary because I know that in the future X, Y, and Z is going to happen, and I need to nip it in the bud now before it's much worse.
Yeah, which I can get, like, because too often there will be something like the hero has to do something bad to save the wider, greater good. And this sounds cliche, but let's just bear with me. And yeah, they'll probably be seen as a villain to others, and it's like, well, no one else going to get their hands dirty. And yeah, I'm probably am going to hell for this, but at the same time too, it's like none of you are willing to do it, so why judge me?
And the thing is, like, the Emperor, canonically speaking, technically does fit that description to a degree, because here's the thing, because the Emperor is out there purging religion because religion bad, and because religion, the warple twisted, yada yada yada. But then he will turn around and specifically engineer a religion so the Mechanicum will listen to him when he arrives. You know what I mean? So
he allowed Mechanicus because he needs their machines.
He engineered it, like he himself put the seats of the religion in place. So he specifically chose a religion for the to engineer the Mechanicus to follow him. No, he didn't left out an instruction manual or simply an ideology. He specifically engineered a religion.
The Void Dragon?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't consider that. Oh, man, I didn't consider that. And you know what? Even going back on the whole thing about like religions being cause of all wars, and here I am getting my hands dirty. Well, this is a good example of something that happened in the last church, because when Uriah joined the initial rebellion that were happening across towns to, fight against the emperor, that wasn't a religious motivation. It was like people rising up against an empire that they didn't like, or, just general mob mentality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because no one knows exactly why a mob's rioting, but when mob burns and sets a flame, everybody starts joining in, not really knowing, wait, why am I doing this? So when they're all rioting against the emperor and his thunder warriors, and when the thunder warriors started putting down the first rank of soldiers, and they were like, oh, what were we doing? They were begging for mercy, and the thunder warriors would not have it. So this is probably the emperor permanently stomping down something to make sure it doesn't happen again, which I'm pretty sure that's one
making
of the
an impression.
Yeah. And also maybe one of the reasons why he wanted to ban religion in his Imperium, or, freedom of religion, because if we need a united galaxy, we can't have something like this, which I'm pretty sure is the heart for why he did the things he did. And he's probably kind of knows that if there's a hell, I'm going there because of stuff I'm doing. And I think that's an example of, I'm going to get my hands dirty for the greater good. And people might not like me for what I'm doing, but they're not going to get their hands dirty, and we're all going to just be permanently set as cavemen.
Yeah. Four things about that, actually. In that way, in a way, I can sympathize with the emperor on the whole thing about stomping down rebellion harshly, because historically speaking, traitors and rebels, when they rise up against you, whatever their causes are justified or not, historically speaking, you kind of need to be, like you said, make an impression to dissuade future rebellion, right? So that's why even the most just and humane rulers in history, when they have traitors or rebellions in them, normally, not always, but normally, they're very harsh on them. They stamp it down, very brutally to make the impression to, this doesn't happen again in the future, because, I'm going to retaliate and retaliate hard. The second is the emperor does know there is a hell. It's, with the warp and all.
I was just being,
I know.
I'm not trying to be literal, man, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm just being cheeky. And it's funny because here's the thing about impressions. When the emperor is giving the example of the Crusades specifically, he criticizes the whole. Let me look at it from here. I have my source on the First Crusade over here.
I remember us talking about this. I think the emperor killed more men with his thunder warriors on that specific battle than the siege of Jerusalem.
Yeah, here's the thing. In Volker of Schotter's Chronicle of the First Crusade, when they talk about the actual attack on, the taking of Jerusalem, let me look for it here. Okay, what the emperor is saying about more crusades pretty much is this. This is from is this the one from the Gesta Francorum or the Volker of Schott's Chronicle? It's the Raymond of Aguilar's Chronicle of the First Crusade. So when they actually when the Christians actually managed to breach Jerusalem, what the emperor is criticizing here is okay. Shall we? And I quote: "Shall we really?" Okay, this is a very long passage, but I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm just going to read specifically what the emperor is quoting, right?
Okay.
Shall we relate what took place there? If we told you, you would not believe us. So it is sufficient to relate that in the Temple of Solomon and the portico, crusaders rode in blood to the knees and bridles of their horses. That's what he's quoting specifically, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the problem with this, first of all, that's physically impossible. First off, it's an embellishment, and pretty much it's universally agreed that it's obviously an embellishment because it is impossible to kill so many people as to be able to so that a horse can wade through blood, basically, up to their bridles.
Mm-hmm.
But also, this is only shocking if you fail to understand the medieval mindset. You know what they're quoting here? They're quoting the Bible. Specifically, they're quoting Revelation 14:20,
mm-hmm.
which talks about blood up to the bridles of horses. And so basically, when the Crusaders took Jerusalem, they saw themselves as deliverers of God's wrath on the pagans, so they acted accordingly. So they're quoting Revelation.
Don't say pagans, man. We know we're referencing the Muslims in Jerusalem, man. Let's not go that route.
Okay, fair enough. Although to be fair, they call them pagans in the chronicle itself.
Okay,
right?
Fair enough. Context matters.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. But so. They're quoting this to illustrate their own point view of this battle of good triumphing over evil, and crushing evil and completely crushing evil as it's supposed to happen in Revelation. It looks shocking to us, and it is. I'm not going to say it's not brutal, because here's the thing. When the Crusaders arrived in Jerusalem, not only they were very numerically reduced from their original host, mm-hmm. but the thing is, when they arrived at Jerusalem, they found a city that was well supplied, well prepared with a garrison, and that had a relief army on the way. So it was always going to end like that. You see, when you siege a city, there are two ways of taking the city. Either you wear them down by encircling them completely and cutting off supplies from them, eventually starving them out and forcing them to surrender, or you assault the city directly, with towers and ladders and battering rams, the dramatic way. And you force your way in. When an army arrives at a city or a castle and you want them to surrender, you give them what I like to call the besieger's ultimatum. And that is basically surrender now, and we will let you live. Resist us, and we will kill you. That's the besiegers' ultimatum, right? So,
which everybody in that time was doing.
Yeah, everybody
or
in
even
that time
back
was
in the
doing
time
it.
I've seen like Troy and all that. Just say, oh well, they shouldn't have done it, and it's like, well, it doesn't make them the exception for what everyone else was doing.
Yeah, and here's the thing. That sounds like oh well, everyone else was doing it, so it isn't bad. Well, when it comes to war, it's not something that impressive. Like even contemporaries of it wasn't even, people quote this as one of the worst massacres in human history sometimes, and that's complete nonsense, simply because it was very routine for war when it happened, to the point that even Muslim chroniclers that were contemporaries to the First Crusade, even themselves have very muted reactions towards it, right? So this is actually a source that I quoted in our original video. I'm going to quote it again. This is from Ibn al-Qalanisi's Damascus Chronicle of the Crusades. So Ibn al-Qalanisi recounts the Muslim point of view of the Crusaders taking Jerusalem, right? So I'm not going to read the entire things because it's several pages long, right? But okay, wait. Therefore, attack the city would increase vigor. Okay. Okay. The townsfolk descended from the wall at sunset, whereupon the Franks renewed their assault upon it, climbed up the tower, and gained a footing on the city wall. The defenders were driven down, and the Franks stormed the town and gained possession of it. A number of the townsfolk fled to the sanctuary of David, and a great host were killed.
So matter of fact.
Yeah. The Jews were so matter of fact. There's more of it, but it's still very the Jews were assembled in the synagogue, and the Franks burned it over their heads. The sanctuary was surrendered to them on guarantee of safety on the 22nd of Shaban, which is the 14th of July of this year, and they destroyed the shrines and the tomb of Abraham. Al-Afdal arrived with the Egyptian armies, but Hound himself forestalled. The surrender of the sanctuary.
So the Crusaders were burning down the statues of Abraham.
Yeah, but here's the thing: the Crusaders did not actually believe that was the actual tomb of Abraham. So that's kind of like a Muslim tradition.
For people who were like, I'm just saying, for Christian warriors, it's like, why are you tearing down statues of Abraham?
Well, it was not an actual tomb of Abraham. That's a Muslim tradition. They did not acknowledge it as such. That's like saying to us, like Christians destroying a Mormon church. It's like why did you destroy Jesus Christ's church? And would be like, Christians would be like, that's not Jesus' church. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Well, I read more. They were encamped outside of Ascalon on 14 Ramadan. Well, the main point I wanted to say was a great host were killed, and the surrender on the guarantee of safety, which I already read, for me not to read so much of it. But basically,
not like last time. But what's the basic point, bro?
Yeah, but what I mean with all of this is to the Christian version is more embellished because they're the winners, and the winners will normally, when they take a city, will embellish it. Will be like, we fought like 1 million of them. Well, fire rained from the sky, and we killed like 10,000 of them. Later Muslim sources, years later, will claim that the Christians killed like 70,000 people, and there were not 70,000 people in Jerusalem. You know what I mean? So it's still brutal. It's still cold, but it was part of warfare that both sides understood very well. So by Ibn al-Qalanisi's chronicle, we see that it's a very muted reaction. It's not like this outrage. Oh, this is horrifying. It's kind of like, okay, so this happened. Shit, you know what I mean?
The only way for the blood up to the rains thing to even be remotely true would be maybe someone misinterpreting them wading through a body of water that had a little bit of blood on top.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of artistic liberty being taken.
Yeah. Here's one more quote from Thomas F. Madden from his concise history of the Crusades, and he says, "By the standards of the time adhered to by both Christians and Muslims, the Crusaders would have been justified in putting the entire population of Jerusalem to the sword. Despite later highly exaggerated reports, however, this is not what happened. A great many of the inhabitants, both Muslim and Jews, were killed in the initial fray. The best modern estimates put the number of dead between 3,000 to 5,000 people. Yet many others were allowed to purchase their freedom or simply were expelled from the city. Later stories of the streets of Jerusalem coursing with knee-high blood rivers were never meant to be taken seriously. Medieval people knew that such things were an impossibility. Modern people, unfortunately, do not." And that's also a failure to understand that they're quoting Revelation, basically. So I think I quoted enough things for today. But what I want to, point out with all of this is that, that's not as, it's not the great shocking thing that people make it out to be. It's still cold. It's still brutal, but that's by taking a city by assault. Yeah, far worse has happened since. And by taking a city by assault, it was always going to happen. And it's actually kind of funny because essentially the Muslim garrison of Jerusalem at the time, the Fatimid garrison, pretty much had every advantage. They were far more numerous. They had a relief army on the way. They were well supplied. The only thing they needed to do was resist. And they still lost, so it's actually kind of difficult not to see that God wanted the Christians to take the city, because
and in the game
the
of
sheer impossibility.
Sorry, man, but also in the game of chance of warfare, unfortunately, someone else had more chance than you. Sometimes
basically
you can study so much for an exam and still fail. You can work really hard, have all the resources and still fail. Sometimes it's randomness that can bring outcome.
And it's I always felt it's like a very selective outrage because they are
because the Emperor makes it a selective outrage when he's talking to Uriah.
Yeah, it's a selective outrage.
Even though the Emperor would know he has done far worse for what he has done in the Unification Wars, i.e. what he had done putting down that rebellion.
Yeah, it's that fine line as well, both in real life and in the fiction itself. That fine line between, pragmatic necessity and, callous cruelty, which can be very fine. Sometimes it's not even personal, but I just said a while ago that the Emperor, by putting down a rebellion, needed to put it down hard just for what it represents.
It's just that Emperor, for what's the stuff you would do onto people, it's like, can you really tell Uriah, oh, this is the absolute worst thing that's happened in your faith? And it's like, well, Emperor, in your crusade to unite humanity, you will do worse.
Yeah, basically.
And because he's barely human, it's possible he's just physically incapable of understanding that the way we do.
And because I even want to say this too, because I think it's a good segment to bring up this one topic, because we talked so thoroughly about the core for why the Emperor was debating Uriah, talking about faith and violence and irrationality and stuff that happened in the past, stuff that's happened at their time, and stuff he had done. Us going back and forth about oh, look at all this chaos that's happened. But the core of why the Emperor was debating Uriah was, faith and violence. And if we get rid of faith, then we can be more tolerant for each other. But I think the second, prime argument that Uriah would talk to Uriah about is, fear of death. Because
yes, I remember this one.
Which let me bring this out. In the audiobook, I listened to the audiobook. The Emperor made this to be like the, slam dunk case against Uriah, and Uriah just leaves because he doesn't say anything back to him. But, in the animated version, when the Emperor brings this up, well, if you believe there's a heaven and when followers of yours, die, why aren't people rejoicing that they're in God in heaven? And Uriah points out to him is that, are you ever happy to lose a loved one who goes beyond another country for a different life? Emphasizing that our life here is a gift and that we must appreciate it and spend our time wisely here. And if you can't understand that, then you're a fool. That's in the anime movie. Hold on. Let me finish, bro.
Painful. Oh,
bro,
go ahead. Sorry.
Let me finish the point.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry. I
So
cannot help myself.
Yeah, you have self-control. But the whole point is that the anime movie did something more than the short story did, which I really liked. And people will say that is a slam dunk because I had people use that against me. Oh, if you believe in heaven, why are you afraid of death? Well, here's the thing. The biggest person to be afraid of dying was Jesus because he was so stressed about it. He was sweating blood. So, and the emperor's saying, oh, well, you shouldn't be afraid of dying. Well, you were never afraid of death. And look at Jesus. He was afraid of dying. So what do you guys have to say on that?
I would say, first of all, why are atheists afraid? If they're just going to go off into the void, what is there to be afraid of? Why do you try so desperately not to die?
Because I think there's that secret deep down in us, deep in our hearts. We don't know what's going to happen for sure when we die. Like,
right. It's not like anybody's been able to like really get, aside from a few saints or people who've had near-death experiences, we know very little about what the process actually entails.
Yeah, we are afraid of pain. We're afraid of uncertainty. And like, I'm going to say what I said last time. I asked a priest that's a friend of the family about this, what he thought about this. He pretty much looked at me like deadpan at me. And I was like, fear, it's a biological response to danger. The body, the brain, death is the danger. It spends its entire life and purpose avoiding. So we feel fear, like we naturally feel fear at it, right? Because our entire biological apparatus, it's avoiding death 24/7 through our entire lives. All our biological processes are an avoidance of death. We go to the bathroom to prevent us being intoxicated. We eat to prevent us starving. We drink water to prevent us dehydrating. You know, everything is us preventing ourselves from dying. So first off, the biological response to the imminence of our own demise, it's going to be terror because the body is fighting to keep itself alive. So that's the first one, right? The second one is life is a gift. We naturally are instinctively programmed to defend it. The instinct to protect one's own life and further their own existences. It's literally the first directive of all living beings. In fact, you could say that that's what living means.
You can be the most like pacifistic person, I'm butchered the word, in the world. You can like be a saintly man on earth saying we must avoid violence at all costs, avoid wars at all costs. But when your city is invaded and the enemy's about to invade your home, you're unfortunately given the push to like put up the sword and fight for your lives.
Yeah. Plus, I would say on the spiritual side of things, people discount for some reason the side of it where you are probably, like, I can't speak for other people, but you're probably also, when faced with death, thinking about, are you ready to face God? Have you prepared your soul enough? And
which I think most of us aren't.
Yeah. So because you'll like, I would note that saints who have made good with God are happy when it's time for them to go. And for most people, that's not realistically achievable, unfortunately. Like the vast majority of us will feel like we haven't finished preparing. And that's a source of fear. And kind of a non-religious example, but like, what about going to like an amusement park with, the big scary rides and stuff? You know that you're going to have fun, but you're still scared when you're up there at the top right before the drop. You know it's going to be fun, but you can't help feeling fear because it's a big question mark still.
Yeah. And like not
all
even
these what
and
ifs.
even yeah, and even like from the not spiritual angle, I'm leaving my family behind. Do I have all my affairs in order? There's so much else I wanted to do. It never feels like we lived enough. Like my mom always
Yes.
tells me that we could live 1,000 years and die when we are 1,000 years old, and we will still feel like we didn't live enough, like we still had more to do, like you know what so like it's never really enough, the feeling that you know you wasted time, you didn't do enough with it, you know, the feeling of regret that maybe I could have done this, like maybe I should have told that woman that I loved her, or you know, the regrets of the for the life none lived will assail you no matter what you do. The people that are genuinely not afraid to die are very dime a dozen, because they're either wrong in the head, because you know they're either bad in the head or haven't achieved a level of spiritual clarity that is very difficult for most people to grasp. Like we have stories of martyrs that are kind of like laughing at the fact that they're being killed, you know, and like that's a fine line between holy spiritual enlightenment and just sheer insanity. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or, you know, like the guy who says, if I'm going to hell, I'm taking you with me, and he's laughing.
Yeah.
That kind of character trope.
Yeah, that kind of character.
I think the point.
I would also say.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. Just one last.
Oh no, go ahead.
Thought on that is, plus, like, I can't wait to meet God, but eternity is scary.
Yes. Like I'm going to admit,
that's a really daunting prospect.
Like I'm going to admit, I feel like I do little petty sins way too much, or even sins that that the church always frowns on, that I still do, and I still go to confession to like every week. And I'm not proud of myself. I'm just like not right in the head sometimes. That's just my own errors as a human being, and because of, you know, stuff. So it's like I go to confession as much as I can, so that if something were to happen, I can show that I'm not like trying to, you know, justify for things I do or like be careless, because I do try so hard to improve myself. I'm just still human at the end. Yeah, at the end of the day, that's why Jesus is there for us.
Yeah. I'm very bad. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So yeah, I'm going to admit I'm probably not ready to see God yet or face eternity. Then again, you can't come back from eternity, or you're not really, really ready for eternity.
Right. There's no do-over.
Yeah, there's no do-overs in this game. And yeah, like that's something I am, you know, afraid of as well, because here's the thing, like I used to be terrified of the prospect of dying, and I mean, I still am, but you know, like, but I still am, but little bit less. But now my terror is not just dying. My terror is that I will not be good enough, because I'm really bad. I'm really bad at, you know, staying in a state of grace. I sin all the time. I pretty much go to confession weekly, which priest of mine says that, oh, that's great that you confess yourself. So
we don't want to keep sinning though, but we still do.
Yeah, and I still do. And I tell to myself, I know the reasons why I do it, but that's our just excuses. At the end of the day,
we're not trying to make excuses, but we understand why we do it.
Yeah. And like that, the situation, the fear of like, you know, death will catch me unawares randomly. I live in a like here, like take it from my perspective specifically. Louis, you live in Canada. Rooney, you live in the US. I live in Mexico. So, you know, just add the danger factor in that. You know, just add that, you know, to my danger factor is higher, you know, it's higher. So like the worry that I will be caught in the middle of a shootout randomly one day while I'm doing errands, it's an actual thing to look out for in my world, to figuratively speaking, right? So like there's that angle for me to consider.
Yes, and the whole point, I just want to mention that, which I think the fan animated film did better when Uriah called out the Emperor on saying something like that. I think it kind of shows that the Emperor, he's a perfect creation of the shamans, whatever lore you want to like pick, just an example of this. He's the Ubermesh of humanity, of what it can be. He's lesser than a old one for sure. It's just that he's also one of the biggest like failures as a human, because he loses a bit of that humanity to make him really be human. So him asking Uriah, why are you afraid of dying? I don't think you're that human to ask that, Mr. Emperor, because like I said, there's that little sprinkle of sociopathy and psychopathy, which I think his sons would like be hurt from. Because I'm just going to say, because maybe him wearing like all this golden light, it seems like he can, turn it off like a switch whenever he wants to, because he is this powerful psyker, yes. So in the animated film, he looks more like a futuristic Conan, or what Conan could have maybe looked like in 40K in that role, which, I think if the Emperor was more portrayed like that, and then later on people just assumed he was this like golden figure of light wearing all this armor, I think that'd be a more interesting take on, what's it called? Not biased Arthur, but unreliable narrator.
Yeah.
Like mythologizing figures of history. That'd be interesting. But still, my whole point, I think the Emperor fails as a human because he's not really human at the end of the day.
Yeah, we are completely, as humans, our relationship with dying completely defines us. Our art, our philosophy, our religions, our governments, they're at the core. They are defined by our relationship with mortality.
Yes. Can you really have a relationship like that as an immortal? Death.
So, yeah, like.
Sorry to interrupt, but it's like.
Yeah, no, don't worry. But the Emperor simply lacking that, because he's a perpetual, will never truly be human in that way that matters, in that fundamental way. He can be human in everything else, but that detail, that specific detail, takes it away from him. Just that one, because the Emperor's a perpetual. He never has had to fear dying.
Like maybe
and
his.
In fairness,
sorry.
Oh, and in fairness, I think that does actually make him a good tool for making this setting as tragic as it is, because he is ultimately what is keeping humanity alive. Because it credit to the setting, it's one of the few where like the aliens did not want to negotiate at first, and I don't think humanity would have stood a chance without the Emperor. It's just such a shame that it came at the cost of losing the intangible parts that made us human.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's the thing too. It's like, that's the Greek tragedy, I think, at the end of the day. And I think this is like page 1 to the Imperium's Greek tragedy, is that the Emperor wanted to help, but it's like good intentions. He had good intentions, but he held everyone on a tightrope. And when he fell over, everyone fell with him. So that's the Greek tragedy at the end of the day. And which I think is unfortunate. It's just that, well, that's the fine line you crossed. You were trying to cross on this tightrope. It's just then came that little snag with stuff like Magnus and Erebus. Then everyone fell in with you.
You could say that, in my point of view, the Emperor gets ennobled more when he gets entombed in the Golden Throne, because the Emperor is now tasting that which he never knew. He's basically suffering a fate worse than death, with the constant agony of the Golden Throne, and holding back the warp, turning into a carcass, his soul being shattered. So like in a way, that kind of like, yeah, some people will disagree with me, but that kind of, for me, ennobles the Emperor more than when he is here, because now he is, in a way, experiencing that thing that that he lacked to be a man, in a way, like he's suffering death, or as close to death as he can. And, there's also the thing to consider that, oh, well, is he even the same being if he would rise from the golden throne, would he even be the same being? I don't know, but, like symbolically, at least for me, like that ennobles him then in that moment rather than as he is right now in the last church story, because, like he's in a way, he is experiencing what he didn't have before. To make him human in that way, which adds another layer to the Greek irony tragedy thing.
It'll be so I just wanted to say, imagine if Jesus is forever crucified and is in hell just for humanity to go to heaven. Imagine if it's something like that.
Well, you can make the argument that's go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, the sheer irony of, like, I would love to know the Emperor's thoughts now, because it's really ironic that the very thing he was trying to purge is what's continuing to keep him alive, and thus all of us alive.
Yeah.
Which I'm wondering if it's maybe making a second emperor, so to say, in the warp.
I've no idea.
There's a theory that what's the God Emperor in the warp is either the Star Child, which is a fragment of the good parts of the Emperor's soul that's being fed by the worship of humanity, and it's coalescing into the actual God Emperor in the warp. Mm-hmm. And the other theory is that, the miracles, the divine interventions that people have witnessed done in the name of the Emperor since even before the heresy started, because those popped up even before the heresy got going, is actually the Emperor fully divinized, but from the future, because the warp doesn't have time. So the fully divine Emperor from the future is reaching back through time, basically.
Yeah.
So that's a theory. That's just a theory, right?
A game theory.
I knew you were going to say that.
But still, I think that we're talking about back and forth, like the last church and all stuff that happened in the short story. I think I want to end on this because I think it's important. Uriah was wrong in his faith when he find out that the Emperor was the godly image he saw on the battlefield on that day. So Uriah was in despair, thinking, how can I live in such a godless world? And when he found out about the Emperor's goals, about he's on his crusade on the stars to unite everyone. And when Uriah decided that I don't want to be part of it, he admits he was wrong. But then again, he never regretted things he did in the name of faith.
Yeah.
So, and people will say, well, it doesn't matter because he was wrong. And it's like, someone can be wrong in their faith, but they won't regret the good they have done for humanity. And the thing is,
he probably comforted countless souls before the church was taken down.
Yes. So there are people, they will be absolutely wrong on their philosophy and stuff, but it's like, will they really regret what they have done for others, or what they have, the good have they done for their neighbors around them, or even people who wrong them? Then again, not so many people can have that like relief.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, for all we know, if it turns out that we pass away and there is just a void beyond, I don't regret that my faith allowed me to do things like the charitable works and whatnot. There's things that my faith facilitated that I would not regret, even if it did turn out that there's nothing beyond.
And when the whole short story ended with his clock, because we didn't mention this, but Uriah had a clock that said it will rain when the world has ended. And when the Emperor left the burning church, he could hear the clock ringing. I think that does telling us that the old world had died and the world is dead because of what he's about to do.
Yeah.
Right.
I agree. And I think, and we just honestly, you want to end it on this note, and that's fine by me, but we only really scratched the surface of the Emperor's arguments. There's so much. For example, the Emperor goes oh, well, your holy book has been rewritten, retranslated, and recontextualized to thousands of years. And it's like, for all his talk about humanity is the bestest thing ever and our great potential, ironically, the emperor, when he says that, he is underestimating humanity. We know all of the translations. We know the context, the minutia of the language. We can trace them back. We can understand their nuances and meanings and translations and go back to the original version of the word. We haven't lost anything. We barely have lost anything in translation, but the emperor is kind of like, well, the meaning is not the same as it was before than it is now. Yes, things can get lost in translations, but we can find them out. We have done it. We have cataloged a lot of Bible translations from the original Greek, Latin, Aramaic, Hebrew to, the minutia of English, Spanish, Italian, German translations. And we know them. Scholars are aware of them. They are aware of the minutia and nuances of the meanings and the translations. So the emperor, ironically, is minimizing humanity in like, oh, you wouldn't even know about this. You wouldn't be able to find out about this. You wouldn't be able to discern the true meaning of your holy text because several translations over thousands of years. No, we can. We do it every day. Like that's not even a question of debate. Oh, there's debate about certain specificity of certain passages and certain meanings, but the fact that we have debates means that we have a way to discern the meaning of set nuances. You know what I mean?
Right, because translation evolving doesn't preclude the validity of a work.
Yeah, basically.
Because, the example is like he descended into hell, like that famous prayer we all do. And like the history of like what the ancient Jews saw as, what would be Hades, Sheol, what you want. We had this conversation before. It's just, the meaning of hell has changed like in 2000 years, like when the church has been standing, and like the imagery has changed, like the purpose of why it exists has maybe been warped here and there, except that the why it's there hasn't changed. And but that's not the conversation we're having. But that's not the conversation piece. And yes, there's so much we haven't talked about in a short story, and there's so much to talk about. I think it's I can't say the word. I think it would be kind of silly for us to like fine comb everything that has happened and be like the Martin Luther to bang on the front door saying why. Here's our points why it's not good.
I mean, I had my Inquisition sources right here for the Inquisition
I'm
argument.
being metaphorical. Please. Metaphors are good. Again, but there's a reason why we're so passionate about this short stories, because other people have been passionate about this thing. Like why they want to make a video about this. Like, the fan animated film, like I said, Arch did on this. Bruva Alvabuza covered this. Adaptus Ridiculous covered this. This short story is important to the Warhammer community, and it's because of what it's talking about that gets us to have a conversation from like what happens in our world and their world.
If nothing else,
go ahead.
Even if it isn't a particularly like great piece of literature, it's very provocative and has inspired a lot of discussion.
Yes, and it's okay to be provocative, to have that conversation, just so long as they're not being an ass. Well, then again, to be provocative, you kind of need to be an ass, but that's the whole thing.
I mean, it is a very central story to the Warhammer mythos, for to use that word, and
it's most screen time you have of the Emperor.
And here's the thing, like Runesong said, it's not like particularly great in the sense of how it uses argumentation. Yes, but what I mean is like I've seen atheists be like, yeah, this is just kind of like an embarrassingly simple-minded, for what arguments, to the point that. To the point of the funniest thing I've seen about this story is basically the animation basically adds lines of dialogue to Uriah, so Uriah can actually have counter arguments that he doesn't have in the actual original text.
Yes, which I was emphasizing.
Yeah, and the other one is that, which is my favorite, there's an actual 2-parter video of a Dominican priest reacting to the Last Church animation, and he's and he agrees with everything that the Emperor says, but takes down the whole Crusade argument, the whole Inquisition argument, which that one's particularly ironic because the Dominicans and the Inquisition were very tied together, and we shouldn't. As long as there exists a religion that tells us not to question, and the Dominican priest is kind of like, yeah, I agree with that, but that's not what Christianity teaches. So I don't know, why people keep tagging me on this.
Yeah, because the Emperor is benefiting from a line of succession of scientific discoveries that come from Christianity.
Yeah, come from Christianity. And we emphasize, and viewers, just to point out, we emphasize Christianity here, not only because we 3 are Catholics, but because, like I said, most of the Emperor's arguments are against Christianity, not even against religion.
That's the point. It's called the Church of the Lightning Stone.
Yeah.
And Graham McNeil will say, oh, it's not Christian-centered. Well, it is Christian-centered. And you know what?
It is.
That's okay, because it kind of shows that Christianity is the main character. Boom.
Yeah, it is.
That's certainly a good way to look at it.
They hate us. They hate us because, they can't be us.
We're all just... Yeah. But... And you know what? That's okay. If it's something that's like Christian-centered, that's okay. I even had someone who says, oh, when I say, oh my God, I'm not referencing to the Christian God. Well, it's like,
yes, you do. Yes, you're doing it.
Yes, they are. Then you don't say God without referencing the Abrahamic God.
Right. You're supposing that there's only one. And how many religions say that there's only one?
I could be talking about the Muslim. He could be talking about Allah, but
that's still the God of Abraham.
You're not saying, oh my Allah. You're saying, oh my God.
and here's the thing. That's still the God of Abraham. And church saints have said it's related to the God of Abraham. This is not like the Sikh God, which is not related to Abraham.
Oh my Valhalla.
It's called Waheguru. His name's Waheguru in Sikhism. His name's Waheguru in Sikhism, and he's more like the universalist kind of God.
Yeah.
Or that's from my understanding. I don't pretend to be knowledge on Sikhism.
Yeah, but you're saying oh my God with big G. You're not saying like oh my Aesir or oh my Olympians, right?
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Oh my Odin.
You're trying too hard when you're saying stuff like oh my Apollo. It's like that's trying too hard, man.
Normally people who adhere to that in this day and age would say like oh my gods.
Yeah, that's trying too hard still.
Yeah,
and then somehow it's not supposed to be a curse when they do it, which is weird. That's a whole other story.
Yeah. But then again, it's like Warhammer does all too. It's like by the Emperor or by Sigmar.
Throne.
By the throne.
By the throne.
By Cthulhu's tentacled beard. That's trying too hard.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, it's crazy looking back on a short story like this and seeing like how this got me and Hubrecht to start podcasting with each other. And it is kind of crazy that we're doing this again 4 years later. And I certainly enjoyed us having this conversation once more because it is the short story that started it all. I might be a little annoyed here and there with some of what was said in the short story compared to the fan film, but overall, it's an important short story, and I think it's good to recognize it is important, even though of how his Ren can be a bit shallow.
Yeah.
But what do you guys have to think on that before we call it in?
Yeah, sounds about right.
I do agree on the I still enjoy the short story despite the eye-rolling moments of
absolute eye rollers.
Like Graham McNeil thought he was being more clever than he actually is, in reality. But it's still emotional. Like the ending of Uriah deciding to immolate himself with the church, it is emotional. I do like it, and the whole thing with the doomsday clock.
That also, was the fact perfect ending. Perfect ending.
Also, I just want to add a funny detail. The Emperor in the short story basically admits in front of the Thunder Warriors that he's going to replace them. I don't know if you noticed that.
Oh, shoot.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so the Thunder Warriors do not notice that. So
they're like, wait, what?
I think that's part of the psychopathy and sociopathy. It's like
galaxy would.
I think that's part of
the galaxy would. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go on.
Uriah basically tells it, you're crazy if you think you can conquer the galaxy with warriors such as these. And the Emperor is like, oh, I won't conquer the galaxy with warriors such as these. I'm going to conquer with another breed of warriors. And he says this in front of the Thunder Warriors.
And he's like,
Papa,
oh, hey, guys. He's like, oh, hey, guys. And not realizing what he has said. or doesn't get what he said. It's like, oh, hey, guys. I guess that's part of
I think he's just that brazen.
Yeah.
He probably thinks well, they're supposed to be, mature and above emotion like this, so they can handle it. Meanwhile, they're like, Father, why? A single tear rolls down his cheek.
Yeah.
It's like, because why not? I think so.
Thunder Warriors probably think he's being metaphorical or something. Yeah. Well, it's probably not. He probably doesn't mean it. I heard we have another mission in Mount Ararat or something. I don't know.
like the Anakin and Padme meme. Oh, you're improving us, right?
Yeah.
Right.
You're right.
Now, it is a fascinating story, and even if there's stuff that you disagree with, it's good to read things that make you uncomfortable, so then you can hone your arguments better.
Absolutely. You guys can recognize that we got a little tensed at certain parts. You can hear it in our voices, especially my voice at certain parts. But you know what? It's okay to be controversial. It's okay to poke the nerve, poke the sacred cow here and there. Because technically, when people say, oh, I don't believe in sacred cows, they absolutely do believe in sacred cows. And you know what? That's
they probably just don't realize which ones.
Exactly. And you know what? That's just being part human, and it's okay to get a little spicy here and there. It's okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
Just don't be stupid about it.
It makes things more interesting.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
It gives it spice. That's why you gotta put spice in the burger.
It's spicy meatball.
Referencing earlier. But I really enjoyed our time here, guys. I think this went great. Is there anything you want to say before we call it in?
Not that I can think of, but thank you so much for inviting me to this.
Mm-hmm. And thank you so much for coming on, Runesong. We hopefully we can do some more.
Yeah, that would be great.
It was great to talk about this with you guys. It was it was as always a very great discussion. It was great to have Runesong in this again. I think she brought her perspective was very valuable in this. And honestly, I'm just glad I got to use my sources.
And I'm glad you weren't fine combing it like last time. But
hey, I'm an historian. That's what I do.
Also extremely autistic, and I can attest because I'm the same. It's just part of the heavy burn we carry on our shoulders.
It's part of the charm of the show.
We're not told to carry those boulders, but we want to carry them. But thank you everybody for tuning in. We hope to see you guys next time for Pint Cellar. And be sure to like, subscribe, and activate the bell so you never miss an episode. With that, we'll see you guys around. And take care.